Welcome to the Cherland podcast, where I, Cherland, meet up with a musician, hear about what makes them tick, what kind of experiences they're bringing into their musical journey, and on today's podcast we have Kayla Phillips. She is in the process of releasing her first debut record. Obviously, it's her first debut. Those two words go together. The first single is due at the end of the month. I'm going to go ahead and leave all of the dates for when things are coming out in the show description. I met Kayla through Garrett Lang-Bartles, who is also associated with a bunch of other people on the podcast, Andrew Pelletier, Arcelia Kent. Kayla splits her time between Indianapolis and Boston for college. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think there's a lot of great songs on the record. I'm excited for you to hear it. I'm glad that I got to hear it early. Please enjoy Kayla Phillips. Kayla Phillips.
Hi.
How do you feel about your new record?
I'm feeling really excited. I'm feeling kind of antsy because I've been sitting on it for a while, and it's kind of at that point where I'm like, oh my god, I just want it out in the world already. But
sure.
I mean, it's
done. How long
done.
have you been sitting on it?
It's ready to go. Everything has been recorded since August.
Okay.
And it's been a lot of really tedious, changes and just different mixes. What was really hard about that, final editing process was that I was in Boston and Garrett, who recorded and produced everything, was in Indianapolis. We recorded all of it summer 2022 in Indianapolis. I mean, it was a lot of text, a lot of really chaotic voice messages back and forth of oh, what if we tried this? What if we did that? And we did get together around Thanksgiving when I came home, and we've been working together. I've just been going in to listen pretty much at this point, but I'm feeling good. I'm excited.
Great. It seems like I've had those experiences where it's just so much easier to be in the room and be like, can you just nudge this left?
Right.
Versus having to describe what that means.
And it's so, for a songwriter, I'm really bad with my words. I have the weirdest ways of describing things. I'm like, it just needs to feel more, oomph. Everyone's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Can you use your words? No, I can't.
Yeah. What were some of the ups, some of the downs of, high points, low points of recording this album for you?
It was weird because it's a blend of older songs for me. I think a couple of the songs are about 2 or 3 years old at this point. I wrote them in high school. Some of them were, fresh. I had written them, 2 weeks prior to meeting Garrett for the first time.
Wow.
And one of the hardest parts for me was making it cohesive because I've recorded, solo and, individual projects for singles where it's really just on one, it's just one goal in mind, but doing a whole cohesive work together where I kind of wanted everything to play back into each other and have a good flow was a little bit more challenging, trying to find a middle ground. That was I feel like that was the most challenging part. I loved all of it. I loved friendship that I was able to create with Garrett and Shay, and that community they're building in Broad Ripple. It is phenomenal. And I love the really tedious stuff, vocal things in the studio. It's so much fun for me.
Yeah. How did you find that cohesion between the tracks? Because I'm sure it felt pretty cohesive to me. It felt like there was one narrative, but I'm sure there's a lot of work you're doing to make it feel that way.
You should see how many torn up pages of my notebook there are or my text threads just being what do we think about this? Because I've gone back and forth on it so much. I ultimately decided that my latest single, Not Gonna Stay, is not on the record. Didn't make sense. It was way too electronic. I love it. It's so much fun, and I'll still bump to it in the car. Don't get me wrong. I'm a biggest fan.
That's a hilarious title for something that you had to cut. That's pretty on the nose.
Could not have planned that better myself.
Yeah.
And I played with the idea of putting something else in super last minute, but I was really happy with the way that the final version that I sent you turned out.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of just hyper fixating on it in my car rides, or just waking up in the middle of the night being oh my god, what if I move this here? Or there is an interlude. It was a lot of stress.
Wow. Okay, so just practically some of the things you're adding interludes to make them feel more similar, or what were some of the other, you were really fixated on order kind of a thing?
I was really fixated on the order, and some of the keys I was writing them in, just there was a very few, I just have this vendetta against putting songs that are a tritone or a half step away from each other next to each other in the track order. It feels gross to me, it feels sticky, I can't deal with it.
Interesting.
So it had to be a really pretty musical lineup to it. it just had to make sense in that way to me. And that was honestly one of the most important things.
It's so rare to meet someone thinking about like an actual album experience these days. Like so many people keep talking about, and I feel like this has lasted for forever. Like people being like, oh, just release a bunch of singles. No, make a bunch of singles, but then just put them in an album. No, make a really good album. There's like a billion voices like telling you how to do all this stuff. So like how did you deal with some of that pushback of like, no, just make a whole bunch of singles. It doesn't have to be together. Versus like, no, I want to make an album that you can actually listen to, and it feels like a thought out album. Like, how did that go for you?
This is just my personal take, but to me, I feel like an EP is a collection of singles. Like it's like I wanted to release some singles and have them together in one place. That's not everybody's definition. That's what I feel like an EP is. To me, an album is a story, or just like one cohesive thought or vibe, even if it doesn't tell an exact story. And some of my favorite works to listen to are always artists that are really specific about their vision, or like their album in order, like top to bottom. It just tells this beautiful story, or it just fits together so well. Like something about it is so beautiful. Like I will never put on Fine Line by Harry Styles and not start at Golden and just listen to it all the way through. Same thing with like Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. I will only listen to it in order just because it's that way for a reason. And I know, at least I would hope, that there was a very considerable amount of thought into the order.
I've never heard that before, but that actually makes a lot of sense.
I don't know why. It was so important to me that it was super, super flowy.
Yeah. Instrumentation wise, there's one point where you go fully acoustic. It's the live performance. It's the name of a place.
Indiana.
In parentheses, living room. Yeah.
Living room, yeah.
Yeah. How did that one come about? Like because that's such a bold thing to put on an album of like an actual, it sounds like an actual live performance, not cut just straight up. So like where was that? Did you do it a bunch of times, or?
That was the original goal for that one. That was going to be the name of the album. I was going to name it Indiana. But then in the studio, the theme of it was, we weren't really sure. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go into the booth and I'm just going to make some shit up. And because the title track is making shit up. So it just became the running thing, and that's what the name was. But Indiana is a very, very special song to me. I wrote about my mom. It was actually a prompt for one of my songwriting classes at school. It was my second semester, and the whole prompt was write poetry. You're supposed to write a poem first and then put the words to music. So it wasn't really supposed to follow like a structure. It kind of was just supposed to feel really open. I did tweak it after the original assignment to kind of fit into more of a song feeling. I wrote it at a point where I was just so homesick, and I'm from Indiana, hence the title. When I brought that one to Garrett, I was like, I don't really want a full band. I don't want anything except for me and a piano at the same time, mic'd up in a living room. And so they have an upright piano at their house. I went over one night and it was pulled out into the middle, all these mics around, different paddings and everything.
Love it.
And I think I did a couple warm-ups, but I think we did it in like 3 or 4 takes. Like it was a super quick process. And I remember all the cords are running down to the basement where the studio is. But Shay's sitting on the couch and she's just sitting there and watching. And I finished the last one and we both kind of look at each other and we were like, yeah, like that was it.
Wow. That's so nice to put all of the work into like a single session. That's so great.
Yeah, that's honestly the one that I still keep kind of going back to, and I'm like, oh, we should like fix this part of the EQ, or like just super tiny things, just because that song's so important to me that like that vision is super important in my mind.
I love that. You mentioned some of the themes being like making shit up. What are some of the other themes that you're really finding as you're like listening through this album over a bunch of times?
Honestly, to me, it kind of tells the story of my freshman year of college. For the most part, like that.
Nice.
Maybe that's just because most of those songs were written at that time, but I mean, the album kicks off with a whole song about me hating parties and extreme social anxiety. Yeah. And then it goes into, a lot of it is like relationship based. The song Making Shit Up was about that feeling where, you know, everyone's like, oh, it's gonna get better. You just, you know, take it day by day. You'll be fine. And you're like, literally shut up. You don't know what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
That's where that one came from. And I brought a lot of that into my college experience, like freshman year, like right at the beginning. Just like listening in order, it also makes sense chronologically at the times that I wrote them. One of my roommates made this fake little poster of just like she drew up a picture for me and she was like, the unreleased works of Kayla Phillips, and she titled it Making Shit Up, and it was all in chronological order of the songs I'd written that year. And it was only like 5 at that point, but that kind of gave more, that really helped the inspiration for it as well.
Where are you going to college right now?
I just finished my 3rd semester at Berklee College of Music.
Oh, cool.
I'm taking a semester off right now to be home. So like all my friends, they're all doing 4th, 5th semester. It's spring break though right now, so they're all having a blast. But
nice. That's a very big deal. I mentioned this prior to starting, but one of the big things that seems to be on the record as far as a theme is like grief and processing grief. And I went to there's an event here in Los Angeles, and it's called Grief Songs, and it's like 12 artists, and each one plays one song about grief, and you like share about it, and it's very interesting because like so many people like to have that much grief in like one space and process it together was like actually like very healing and beautiful. And yeah, I wanted to see if that resonates with you and what like processing grief through songwriting feels like on your end.
Definitely. I honestly didn't know how to process grief through songwriting until it just happened. And then it was it really unlocked a lot of things for me. Like I was saying earlier, I felt like the record kind of was telling the story of my freshman year of college. There you get, you know, it's like parties and relationships and love, but then you get to this part of it where it starts talking about my family. Just to be really candid, when it was the first day of classes my freshman year and I get this call from back home, and I find out that my mom had a seizure. She's going to the hospital, and they find a tumor in her brain. Like, thankfully, the whole thing got removed, but later we found out it was actually a glioblastoma. If you don't know what that is, it's just basically an incurable brain cancer.
Oh my God.
And there's 4 different stages of it, and we just drew the short straw with 4. And that became a huge part of my identity, socially, musically. My mom says it all the time, it's not the club you ever want to be a part of, but once you're a part of it, it's like the most supportive group of people you could ask for. I mean, I really didn't know what to do. At that point, I was far away from home. I was feeling lost, and that's where the last song on the album came from. It's called Home. And that one, when I'm listening to in order, sometimes I'm like, I'll have to just like turn that one off because I'm like, we're not doing that today. I can't put myself through that one. But it was this feeling of like, I'm far away, I miss everybody, and I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Like, am I supposed to stay here? Am I supposed to go home? Where is my home? Is it Boston? Is it Indiana? That was a really big, and it's something I'm still processing. I can't even honestly say that it's done and processed, but the class I ended up taking my 2nd semester, where it was like just a vocals perspectives on songwriting was what it was called. That prompt that helped me write Indiana was a really huge step in using songwriting to process my grief. So that was in like the spring. Thing about the glioblastoma is that you're grieving things along the way. She's still with us, but as she continues to decline and loses a lot of things like her mobility, her just like some aspects of her personality, it's all just different things to grieve. So rather than just, you know, a quick end, it's a very slow, drawn out, losing everything one by one kind of end. And that's what occupied most of my summer. Was recording my album, watching my mom deteriorate, and kind of just still in that lost feeling. It also didn't help that right at that time I was going through a really, really tough breakup, and it was someone that was with me as soon as we found out about my mom through all of it, and then it just didn't work out. And it was really, really hard for me to lose the one person that helped me process. And so I just had this completely, utterly alone, not knowing what to do feeling. And that's where my song Peace came from. And I think to this day, that's still one of the songs I'm the most proud of, because it's probably one of the worst feelings I've ever experienced, where it's like, I don't feel safe anywhere in the world, but it also, I think, really helped me heal.
Kayla, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's a really heavy segment. Maybe.
No, I think
I'm sorry. I laughed about too much.
You're welcome to laugh. I think that was one of the biggest things I noticed at this Grief Songs event, was how much of mourning is mourning the living. The majority of things that people were mourning were people who were still alive, and like watching things change over time in a way that you don't want. And
it's so common too. Like,
yeah. But it's also so rare. Like, it's, I mean,
True.
it's like, I agree that so many people are having this experience. The majority of the population isn't having it with you, right? Which is why there are like specific groups that bring these people together, so that you can understand that you are far from alone. But like walking around, like, it's also just really opened my eyes to how many people are in grief and not sharing it. And like how much harm we do to ourselves and others by not expressing grief and sadness and being able to pressure, like, because no one wants to be the downer,
right?
You know, like no one wants to like bring the vibe low. But the thing is, like, people who are going through grief don't necessarily want to keep the vibe low. You know, they're able to like dip way low, and then
bring it up
and
so
come right
fast.
back up. Yeah, because
that's literally me to a T. That was one of my struggles. So I went back in the fall for my third semester. I've got one of the most messed up senses of humor. Like, and my friends are going to listen to this and be like, oh God, please don't say something stupid, Kayla.
Yeah.
But that was one of my struggles, where it was like, we'd be having, you know, like good moments, but then there's something that I'd want to tell them, or like I would find out something new, but I wouldn't want to make everybody depressed. So I'd say something, and then I'd crack a joke about it, and everyone would be like, should I laugh? Like, what do I do right now? Yeah. But it also sucks, because it's hard being the friend that has a million problems, because I hate it when my friends are like, well, I don't want to talk to you about my problems because I don't want to make it seem like mine are anything in comparison to yours. And I'm like, no, I don't want to like grief shame you. Like, your problems are your problems. Please talk to me. I don't want to be excluded from your life. Like, that's one of the biggest things that's happened since her diagnosis, is people just assume I can't help them in any way. And I'm like, honestly, like, I would love to talk about your problems for a change. Like, please get me out of this.
Your shit's so light. I can pick it up
just
like
give me
this.
some of that. Like, it's snacks for me. Come on. See, bad jokes, man.
No, it's so important. I have a buddy going through some heavy stuff at the moment, and that was one of the things that he had to bring to me, was he was like, look, I know that I've been dumping this stuff on you, but like, pretty soon I want you to start dumping stuff back onto me, because I like, right now we have kind of a therapy thing going, and I want it to go back into friendship. And like, that's, I think at the like initial point of like learning this stuff, it's like you probably are at your max, and then your max expands and then contracts again as you like reach a new max. So it's like we heard terrible news, I'm processing it, I've processed a lot of it, I can hear some of your stuff. We have harder news, probably not today. But like,
give me a few.
Give me a few. Yeah, it's super interesting. What has it felt like to share this personal of information on an album? That seems so vulnerable. That seems scary. I mean, you already mentioned you're an oversharer, so like maybe everybody who already knows you, they're like, well, if you're gonna be in a relationship with a girl, chances are you're gonna get 12 songs written about you. But
right.
So it just comes with the territory at this point.
It does. Okay. It totally does. Oh God. There's a couple songs that I'm nervous about people hearing. I'm nervous about Home, which is the last song on the album, just because I think that one's probably my most vulnerable. I don't know, something about when it gets to that bridge, I'm just like, girl, you were really messed up when you wrote this one. Like it's, I don't know, that one gets really, really personal. And I feel like a couple months ago, I would have been really nervous about people hearing Peace, just because I was not personally at peace with the way that relationship ended. Yeah. But after, being back at school in the fall, facing that head on, having the opportunity to perform that a lot live was probably some of like the best moments I've experienced so far. Like a lot of those live performances I had this past fall were unimaginable.
I'm very interested in asking about your, just like, because we're like mentioning grief, which like characterizes you as like this grieving person in totality. Like your like entire personality would be like grieving and sad, which I don't think that it is in the least.
I try not to let it be. I try.
We have these different like versions of ourselves that kind of travel through time, and right now you might categorize it as like the grieving period. What were some other like phases or times of life, whether it be just like this was my Twilight years, this was my Star Wars years, like what other eras of Kayla would we find looking backward?
Oh God. I was a really unfortunate theater kid in high school.
Unfortunate?
That was unfortunate.
Describe.
Like, it was just like, I was like one of those people that like watched Glee. Like, not that that's a bad thing, no disrespect.
Like, a lot of the nation watched Glee. I did not watch Glee, but everyone thought I would watch Glee.
So, I don't know if that's like a compliment or not. Like, being like, you just look like you'd watch Glee.
No, it's because I love High School Musical, so like people were just like, oh, you're gonna love Glee. And I was like, no, I do not love Glee.
Okay, in retrospect, Glee is awesome, so you should definitely watch it. But, oh yeah, it kind of changed year by year. My high school had a really awesome performing arts program, and I was super involved in it. They have, I don't know what it's at now, but when I was there was like 500 kids in the choir program. My high school was massive. There were over 5,000 kids that went there.
Jeez.
My graduating class was like 1,300. Jeez. It was crazy. So performing arts was huge there, and there were 7, I think, maybe 8 different choirs. And I was in 2 of them. One was an a cappella group, loved that. It was like my child. I was so dedicated. And then I was in the show choir, which is just, singing and dancing show tunes with really crazy hair. Mm-hmm. I also loved that. I like totally talk crap about it now, but I will still be like, God, that was fun.
Yeah.
Like, it
what
literally
did you love
was
about
real life Glee. I love the performance aspect. That's always something I go back to. It's like, I just love to be on a stage. I really do. Whether that's like acting or I'm like, in my 70s getup and I'm doing, whole rock and roll thing. Like, I just love to perform, and I love to see, like, I love people's reactions while I'm like I just feed off of that. Yeah. It's my favorite. But that's I did have a Twilight phase. Absolutely, completely 100%.
Have you been able to incorporate any of your musical theater into your songwriting?
I've had like a battle with that where I sometimes will come up with things and I'm like, this is too theatery. But I also don't know if that's like a bad thing. I don't know. It's something I'm still wrestling. I was actually talking to Garrett yesterday. I was in the studio doing harmonies for one of Kristen Arcelia's songs, and we were all just hanging out down there, and we were talking about my record and how I'm kind of done with the singer-songwriter thing. Like, I did this record and it means a ton and it's super vulnerable, but I just love rock music. Like, I really do. Yeah. So that's just like a little bit more upbeat, leaning towards pop even, like, and if musical theater finds its way into that somewhere, it will. That's exciting.
What has made you over the singer-songwriter?
I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to write the perfect sad song. And I've noticed that ever since I kind of wrote a few in the summer that I really liked. I don't know. I feel like, especially with social media and a lot of these like artists that are kind of on the rise that have that like really just prominent singer-songwriter sound to them, like you have to have this kick-ass sad song that just completely like makes you fold over and like you want to crawl in a ball. And if I don't accomplish that, every time I sit down to write a song, I get really upset with myself. And I'm like, I just get down on myself and I'm like, I can't write songs. I can't do this. I think that honestly, sometimes my voice is too big for the genre. Like, that sounds like a weird sentence, but I have a hard time getting like soft and like like a very vulnerable sound. I can say vulnerable words, but I've always had a lot of power behind my voice, and that it just feels more comfortable in a style that feels fun to me rather than that feels depressing.
Right. So, like, I've recently been thinking about, like, what are the, like, rock songs that I really love, and a lot of the rock songs are actually, like, pretty dark in lyrical content, but very fun in the vibe.
Don't get me wrong, I'm still gonna write sad songs, but, like, they're just gonna have a cool beat. Like, that's what it is.
That's interesting. When you get into those times of comparing yourself to prominent artists, because I mean, if you start writing rock songs, you know, there's a bunch of people who write really good rock songs, and they can put all of our stuff to shame. Like, what brings you out of that space of, like, comparing yourself and being like, why bother? Like, all the good songs are written, and, like, what brings you into a space of, like, I'm just gonna write.
Well, I've kind of just always known that music was it for me. The whole, like, comparison thing, like, yeah, I struggle with it all the time. Every artist ever has. Like, it's just a natural part of the game. I think a lot of what's helped me is that I have a really, really supportive family. I know that if I can't get my peers to support me, I can get my family and all of their best friends to support. Like, I've got a lot of Facebook moms that have my back. And there's just been nothing else that's, like, had so much of a fire as music has for me. And I'm also just not good at anything else, so I always tell myself, like, I have these conversations in my head all the time where it's just like, I'll be driving in the car and I get really serious with myself and I'm like, look, it's this or nothing, so like, you gotta make it good. And it's like a lot of pressure, but, like, it's in a fun way, you know.
It's like a fun pressure.
It's like a less depressing pressure.
When did you start feeling that way about music? Like, this is the way. Like, when did that start happening for you?
When I was in first grade, we had this, like, thing where it's like, oh, you show up to school and be like, oh, this is what you want to be when you grow up. And I was like, I'm going to be a rock star. Yeah. Everyone's like, I'm going to be a vet. I'm going to be, you know, an accountant. And I'm like, I'm going to be a rock star. And I brought, like, a little microphone, and it was, like, my whole thing. But, love that. I mean, I grew up playing. Both my parents are musical. They, like, forced me and my siblings to do music, thank God. Mm-hmm. And I kind of started with performance through the church, because my dad was a pastor from as long as I can remember up until a couple years ago. Yeah. So when I was in, I think, 6th or 7th grade, I was, like, on the big stage singing harmonies and playing acoustic guitar. And yeah, I honestly think that if it weren't for that kind of, like, performance practice, I wouldn't be a fraction, like, as confident as I am. Because I got very comfortable on a stage very fast. Like, I've never really had that, at least that I remember, like, stage fright or feeling like, oh, this is just a hobby. Like, it was always like, this lights me up. This is what it is. I can't picture myself doing anything else. That was kind of it.
It's interesting to have the mix of, like, you've experienced this since you were a kid, but I don't get the sense that you're full of yourself. Was there, like, some sort of, because there were kids at my church growing up who had that exact scenario, and then, like, you know, I felt like the ego just, like, ever expands, and I was one of those kids for different reasons whose ego just ever expanded. Was that something that, like, your parents talked with you about, of just, like, you're very good, don't let it get to your head, you're, like, just, like, it seems like you just know that you're good at it and you enjoy it. That's, like, the general vibe that I'm getting.
No one's ever told me to not let it get to my head. And
that's hilarious.
It's weird, because I'll have days where I am so arrogant and I'm like, God, I am the shit. Yeah. I'm serious. And then other days I'm like, I can't, like, I'm horrible and I'm never going to make it. And this industry is too hard. But other days I'm like, man, there is no one like me. And it's just like, I'm serious. This is, like, my day. And it just completely goes back and forth. I don't know what triggers it. I don't know, like, what will happen certain ways. But, like, it's so back and forth.
Interesting.
And, yeah, I also think, so I'm really close in age to two of my siblings. So it's weird. I have a really big family. There's, like, the core three. And so it was before my mom and dad got divorced. They had three of us. I have an older sister, me, and then my younger brother. I'm the middle child. It just makes sense. Mm-hmm. But they're both singers. My sister's voice matured faster than mine because she's, 2 years older than me. But there was always this, like, unspoken competition when we were younger to be like, who can belt the highest and who can, like, do this run better. And but we would never, ever be mean to each other about it. We would always, it was kind of this pressure into making each other better. Even though, it's the sister relationship and you do, like, really nasty things behind each other's back and that whole thing. But, I mean, do you have any siblings?
I have an older sister, but we're
the sister and sister dynamic is a really chaotic duo. And
what do you do behind her back?
Well, we just, like, she would call me mean names, and I would, like, put gum in her notebook, or, like, things like, yeah.
Like real bully stuff.
Yeah, we'd steal each other's clothes, classic things, and then, like, scream at each other because you didn't ask, but it's okay if you ask, and, it's this whole thing. Yeah. But, we just had this, it was kind of just an unspoken pressure to make each other better without ever being mean about thinking that you're better than the other person. So I think that, it did kind of help me with the whole competition feeling that's at Berklee. And everyone will tell you, oh, it doesn't feel like there's competition, but there's absolutely competition. Like, the people that are telling you that there's not competition are the people that get the opportunities.
Right, yeah. Yeah, what does that look like? Is there like, are there actual competitions at school, or is it just one of these things of, like, whoever writes the best song in class is probably going to get asked by the teacher to do?
It's a little bit of both. So, like, the actual class settings are different because that's more of an equal, like, you're all, getting critique from your professor and, like, from your peers and everything. But Berklee has these school organizations through a couple different things. They have an A&R program. They have, like, a Popular Music Institute, which is, like, probably the biggest deal for, like, performers and songwriters. But they have different things where, like, you can audition to be a part of a themed show at their huge stage with, like, an incredible band, and it's this whole production. Like, they did this Taylor Swift night, and it was so good. Like, they just do things like that, and, you're competing with some of the most talented people your age, like, around the world, and it's kind of cutthroat, like, and to, like, try to get on bills for shows if you're playing on venues, like, outside of school, like, because there's just so many people doing the same thing that you do.
Right.
It's, like, you have to have really thick skin to handle a lot of rejection. Same thing for the industry as a whole, but it's in an environment when you're still learning and you're still trying to find yourself as an artist, and you're just being told no.
Yeah. I didn't start this stuff till I was, like, 23, basically. So, like, I couldn't imagine handling that level of rejection at the age of 18, 19, 20.
It's crazy.
So, yeah, how do you handle it?
I've had some really catty moments where I'm
I've punched a couple people.
Hey, don't worry about it. And I'm all about, like, affirmations, and sometimes I think they're total bullshit, and I'm like, these people just want me to say these things, and I don't actually feel them, but I feel like I'm really vigilant about really engraving them into my pattern of thinking. I find that it's a lot healthier to process things like that. Like, I truly believe that, like, there's only one you, and, like, there's only one set of your specific talents, and there's only one person that can sound like you do or shape words the way you do, and just because someone else got an opportunity, they're gonna do what they do best, but you're meant to do something else. Like, that's what I tell myself, is that, okay, I didn't get this didn't work out for me, but I'm gonna get something, and it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
So, at least I try to keep that positive attitude. Sometimes it doesn't work. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to be like, I'm super holier than that, because no, I say mean things and I have to get it off my chest sometimes, but I at least try to be a healthy person. This person is clearly
worse and they don't deserve it. It's just obvious, and if you had eyes or ears, this would be very clear.
I can say really, really uncensored things in my journal and to my therapist, and besides that, I try to not put negative things out.
Yeah, it's very smart. It's not a it doesn't help to like that. It again is one of those things that you just like have to grieve and be like,
Right.
I wanted that, somebody else got it.
Right. And it especially doesn't help. I've talked to a lot of people, and I mean, I came from a super great performing arts high school, and I was always like, at least as I got older in the program, definitely not when I was like a freshman or a sophomore, but I would get like good opportunities, and I'd get the solos, and I'd get into the choirs I wanted and the roles I wanted, but it was always between me and like these few other girls, but it was always like there was enough to go around because there was only a few of us.
Right.
You take all of those like top dogs from the high schools and throw them in a college together with a ton of people who have never handled rejection before.
Yeah.
Because they always got what they wanted. And so it's like, it's chaos, honestly.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Okay, I have a couple last questions for you. I have one more because I'm always fascinated by music school in general. Like, what are some of the like big takeaways that you feel like you're really improving on? Because there's so many different ways to improve in music. You're like, oh, I understand theory like the back of my hand. Oh, I understand like recording engineering. Like, what has it been for you? Like, oh, I came in and I felt like I was this, and now I'm changed in this other way.
Yeah, when I went in, I could really only write one type of song, and it was, "This boy hurt me, and this is how I feel about it."
Yeah.
I really didn't know. I wasn't really great at music theory. I had a good ear. I should say I have a good ear. That was never... They have, like, a couple different classes dedicated to basic theory. They have harmony, 4 semesters of harmony, which is just jazz theory. They make you take 4 semesters of ear training, which is just practice with like sight reading and like hearing chords. And oh god, there's another and I'm forgetting about it. And okay, it'll come back to me in a random conversation. They make you take 2 semesters of like classical theory too, that they call tonal harmony, and a lot of stuff to just... And I a lot of people are like, oh god, why do I have to take this? But I mean, I get it. They want you to be really well-rounded, and they care so much about like the technicality of your education. I can't really speak for the other departments and what they teach you in your private lesson, but most of the people that I know who have gone through the whole program are like seriously some of the best musicians I know, and they're only like 23, 24, 25. Like,
wow.
Just because it's super intense training in a super short amount of time, and you get super well-rounded. I was really attracted to the school for the songwriting major specifically, because I think they're one of the only schools that offer the songwriting major, and it was written and invented there.
Wow.
And the guys that wrote the course and like the entire major still teach some of the classes.
Cool.
Like, it's like you're learning from the best of the best, and that was the most attractive part to me. And also just the opportunity to network with other really great musicians, meet just, I mean, crazy talented people. My band is based out, they're all still out there, still like doing school, and they're so crazy. They're so good. And I'm like, why do you guys want to play my songs about boys who hurt my feelings?
Yeah.
It's like...
Wonderful. Last final questions. Do you have any best gig or worst gig stories you want to share?
My best gig? Well, when I'm in Indianapolis, I do I only do solo shows because I don't really have a full band here. I'm like working on, sorting that out so I can do some like cooler things, but it's typically just me and my acoustic guitar. I have 2 really great gig stories. One's just like more fun. The other one's like kind of sentimental. First one was in Boston, and it was in October. I had this free show it's this tiny Berkeley venue called The Loft, and it's a loft with cute carpets and ambient lighting, and people weren't really playing there, and I remembered seeing posts from like graduates being like, oh, I have this free show at The Loft, and so I started emailing, and I was like, how do I get a show here? Like, this seems like a cool venue. I want to set up my own thing. And one, because it's on campus and it's a free show, it's kind of like guaranteed a lot of people are going to show up because you don't have to go far and you don't have to pay.
Right.
It wasn't like crazy packed, but I mean, it was a lot more people than I expected. People that I didn't really know, like, cared about me in the slightest or wanted to hear my music showed up. And I mean, I still get positive response about that show to this day. Like,
cool.
I'll have people text me and be like, that just blew me away. And it was so in the moment, and we did a cover of Scott Street by Phoebe Bridgers.
Nice.
And everyone was doing like the ooh-hoos at the end while I'm like doing all these things on top, and it was
Cool.
it was so just like euphoric, and
Yeah.
the whole show was amazing. The other second best gig, my mom used to gig with me a lot when she was, you know, healthy and whatnot.
Yeah.
She's was one of like the best piano players I knew. She is so, so good. So when I was first starting out gigging and I didn't feel comfortable playing 3 hours on acoustic guitar, I just didn't have the chops for it. So we'd take a keyboard and she would do like half of a set with me for 3 sets. And it gave a lot more like variety. I was able to do like, you know, Elton John and different kinds of songs, and it'd give my hands a break.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the first things to go after she had her like seizure and was diagnosed after her surgery was the ability to control the left side of her body. Cool. So that naturally makes it really hard to play piano. Yeah. But so much of it was muscle memory because she'd been playing since she was like 6, 7, 8. So right before I went back to school in the fall, we decided to do just like a one last hurrah show at this place we used to play together all the time. It's called Peace Water Winery. And the staff is amazing. I love them. I play there all the time still. And she only did a couple songs just because it wore her out and she wasn't really sure what she could do. But oh my gosh, the place was packed. So many people. I mean, people were crying. I almost cried, but I had to, you know, keep it together for the performance. Yeah. But what was the most special part about that was I actually had Garrett. I asked and I was like, what is the probability we can do a, like, on a whim live recording of my song Indiana with my mom playing it and I'm singing? And he was like, whatever works, we'll make it happen. I love where this idea is going. So he showed up. It was super chaotic, and there's, like, all this background noise to it, but we have a live recording of my mom playing my song Indiana, and I can't listen to it. I physically can't do it. But I have a plan to release that on her birthday over the summer, and I'm going to have all of the profits go to the American Brain Tumor Association for that release specifically. So that was a really, really sentimental gig for me.
Wow. That is so special. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I like still think about that and I like will get choked up because it was just a really, really special day.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you thought to record it. That's like, I feel like that's something that musicians do all the time really well. Is they're like, I feel like something special is about to happen. We should all record this, right? It's like,
right. Garrett does that in the studio all the time. I'll be like, okay, I need to like just think about what this harmony is. So just play it, but don't record it in case it sounds like shit. Yeah. And then he won't tell me, but he'll record it and be like, just in case magic happens. And I'm like, you think magic's gonna happen right now? Like, what's happening?
It could, though.
It could. Yeah. There goes the self-doubt again. Not thinking I'm magic.
Yeah, it's all 2 sides of the same coin. It's just all ego. It's whether it's I can and I can't, and they're all it's rather than maybe. Let's see. Do you have any best or worst advice you've received about your music career?
Best advice? Oh God, I don't know. I was back to your question about my like weird phases in life. I was a diehard One Direction fan. Like, would fight to the death to protect those boys.
As you should be, yeah.
Right. So after they
needed protection from you, clearly.
clearly, because I'm oh God. Fangirl extreme. They hosted Club 90s was on tour to like Indianapolis and they did a One Direction night and me and my best friend went and it was so much fun. It was like all these 20-something-year-old women just screaming. Oh my God. That's anyways, amazing. I went to this meet and greet thing that I don't even know how I ended up there, but I was in 8th grade and I got to meet Niall Horan, and I was, like, so starstruck, right? Oh, my gosh, he smelled so good.
Oh, and yeah. Wait, tell me about the smell.
It was, like florally, but, like musky at the same time. Yeah. It's, like what you would imagine he would smell like.
Like a guy, but, like, a sweet-smelling guy.
Yes, it was just, like, a very kind, gentle guy, but it was also sexy at the same time. It's exactly what you would expect them to smell like.
For a childhood crush. It's the perfect amount of sexual.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was, 8th grade me was like, oh my God, what's going on? It was, oh my God.
Wait, how'd you smell him? Did you hug him?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, whoa.
I know.
Wait,
yeah.
2 hands?
Yeah, 2 hand, like full,
Whoa.
like frontal hug. Yeah.
Wait, you went up and down, or you went double down, double up?
I think I went double down because he was much taller than me.
So smart, yeah.
Yeah.
And that way
yeah.
you're really in there.
Really in the spell.
Yeah, you're basically in the crook of his neck at that point.
Oh, yeah.
And you just stay. Wow.
It's just like, what's going on? But I asked him, I was like, I'm gonna make it. I just don't know how.
Yeah.
What do I do? And this manager that's like telling, like, we smile, we take the picture, and he was like, what? Like, what did you say? Sorry, it's so loud. And I would like repeat, I was like, look, I'm gonna make it. Like, I'm gonna be something big, but what do I do? How do I get there? Mm-hmm. And this manager's yelling at me and my mom to like keep the line moving, and he was like, whoa, stop, at the manager. And I was like, oh, so you love me, like
oh, so we get married. I got it. Okay,
right, like, watch out, whoever's girlfriend is now. But he was just like, he was just like, you just like be consistent, like keep doing the videos, keep doing all the work that seems like hard work, but like it's the work that you need to do. And like he said something, he's like, keep posting videos on YouTube, and I was like, who uses YouTube? Like, come on, man. But I mean, I guess that the now terms would be like, keep using TikTok, you know?
Yeah,
trying
or
to
YouTube
get
Shorts,
viral.
just any vertical,
gosh,
just make
YouTube.
vertical videos.
Just vertical videos, but he just was like, don't quit. And I was like,
yeah,
I won't.
I
just
never
just
will,
for you.
Nigel. For you. I
Right.
will never quit for you.
I would never quit for Niall. I will go until my dying breath because Niall told me to not quit.
That's a good reason to not quit right there. Do you have any books that you've been reading that have been helpful to you?
I'm a big reader. I'm said that, but I like have not been good about it this year so far.
Yeah.
I started reading this like series, and it's slow for me. I don't usually do series, but I don't know. I don't read a ton of like, you know, self-help, things like that.
Yeah.
I read a lot of memoirs because I love to hear other people's stories.
Nice.
And like just their lives and things like that. So some of my favorites, Educated by Tara Westover was one of my favorites. So good. Everything I Know About Love was easily one of my like top 3 from last year.
Oh, who wrote that?
I think it's like Dolly Alderton, okay. One of those. I don't know how you say the last name, but it's just her going through her 20s in the shit show that's the dating scene when you're single in your 20s. And it's all about like just like the importance of your female friendships. And I don't know, it was just really cute. I think there's a TV show for it, but the book, so good. And did you read the Jeanette McCurdy one? I'm Glad My Mom Died.
My wife did.
It was so good, especially because like, you know, I like grew up with her. Like,
yeah,
it was
I mean,
just
me too.
crazy.
Yeah. I'm an iCarly boy. If you ever seen one,
the best show.
Yeah.
I liked Victorious a little bit more just because I like the music thing. But like iCarly, Spencer like made iCarly, you know.
I mean, so did Gibby, but
that's true. That's true. He was awesome. Guppy. It was just crazy reading about like the very common experience of like child actors like growing up through like Disney or Nickelodeon, and the kind of just the way that it's still totally screwed with her life, and she's like, you know, full, like she's grown, she's doing her own thing, but she's still just like, it's crazy. It was so good.
Yeah, it's a lot to work through. It makes you pretty happy you didn't have that experience, even though as kids we all wanted that exact experience.
I was like, I would have given anything to be one of those people growing up. Like, I wanted to be like one of those kids on like Nickelodeon or Disney, but after reading that, I'm like, thank God I was not.
Yeah, that's if there's anything to gain from that and the movie Honey Boy is careful what you wish for, because it is that's a hard road.
It's a hard road.
Is there? Do we have a release date for the album?
Not yet, but I'm shooting for May.
For May, okay, great. May or the summer. Is there anything else that we want to be plugging at the moment, or telling people to follow, watch, listen, that kind of thing? Yes.
Definitely be checking out my Instagram. It's just Kayla Phillips Music. That's where I post the most. I like try to do TikTok, but it's so stressful. So don't rely on me there.
Yeah.
But definitely Instagram, tried and true. My next single, Peace, is going to be coming out at the end of April. Still don't have a date. I haven't really landed on one yet, but I definitely will by the end of next week. It'll be out.
Nice.
Announced, all the good stuff.
Cool.
If you're in the Indianapolis area, in May, there's this big event that my family's hosting. It's called Kelly's Kegs and Eggs 5K. We started it last year. It's a 5K fundraiser for glioblastoma research. We do it in my mom's name, Kelly. Mm-hmm. And Kegs and Eggs, you have breakfast and beer. Really awesome, right? Your ticket gets you free breakfast and free beer. And we're flying my band out from Boston to do the entertainment for it. And It's going to be epic. And
that sounds amazing.
You don't want to miss it. You can find all of it on Kelly's Kegs and Eggs, 5k.org, something like that. I don't know. It'll be in my Instagram.
Nice.
Instagram's the best way to go.
Yeah. You already have a donation link in your
Yes. So
Instagram
that
bio.
link is specifically for her. It's the GoFundMe for her. But what's special about Kegs and Eggs, it's actually non-for-profit. They got their certification for that, and I don't know, whatever the legal tax terms are. I don't know. I just sing.
Yeah.
But they split the profits 50-50. Half of it goes to the ABTA, American Brain Tumor Association, and the other half goes to an emergency medical fund for families in the area that are like us, where something happens out of nowhere and all of a sudden you have all these crazy expenses that, you haven't gotten your insurance up to date to cover that, or it's just, insurance doesn't cover it. So it's really just to help out people that are going through similar things that we went through.
Yeah.
So last year, we didn't really expect a ton. We ended up having over 500 people and raising over $50,000.
Wow.
This year we're shooting for double. So.
Wow.
Lofty goals.
Yeah.
Lofty goals.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck with meeting that goal, because that sounds so good. I'm so impressed with what you guys are doing out there. Those are all my thoughts. Impressed. Wishing you honestly the best of luck. That's all I have to say. So we'll go ahead and clap us out if that works for you.
I'm ready to clap. Clap.
Wonderful. Well, sweet. Thank you. Do you feel? How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling good. That honestly kind of felt like therapy a little bit.
Thank you kindly for listening to the podcast. It's really just an excuse for me to meet amazing people and learn from them. So if you liked this episode, feel free to take a look at some of the other artists I've talked to, or let me know if there's someone in your life who's a musician that you'd like me to talk to next. You can learn more about my music at connorcherland.com, or find me on Instagram or Spotify under Connor Cherland, ConnerCherland. All right, see ya.